All right, this meeting of the Trophy Club Planning and Zoning Commission will come to order. It is 7:02 p.m. Commissioner Bob Stevens is absent. All other commissioners are present. We will start with our public comment period, an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any presentations made to the board. Presentations are limited to matters over which the board has authority. Speakers have up to 4 minutes or the time limit determined by the presiding officer. Each speaker must complete the speaker's form that includes the topics to be presented. You may also email mcox@trophyclub.org. Do we have anyone wishing to speak during this portion? We do not. Our audience is so large. We'll move on to our regular session items. Start with item number 1, case PP-22-001, Bobcat Village Phase 1 Preliminary Plat, formerly 1H. Consider and possibly act on a recommendation to the Town Council on a preliminary plat for Bobcat Village Phase 1, formerly 1H, containing roughly 2.788 acres of land located east of Bobcat Boulevard, south and east of Halifax Street, and north of Byron Nelson High School. So, Matt, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. As y'all recall, back in December, we had a zoning case for these parcels here. It was recommended by y'all, and also the council approved the PD zoning for this property. The formerly is a gas well site. The property owner has applied for preliminary plat to facilitate the development of this parcel. I'm going to go back real quick. So we referred back to the PD for these preliminary plats. The PD doesn't have a specific number at the moment. When we go to council in a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to have that on the agenda, and we'll add that as PD 36. So that's what we'll end up calling that as PD 36. This particular plat consists of 21 residential lots, 1 open space, and 2 open space that are also private street lots. The 21 lots, they meet or exceed the minimum standards from the adopted PD. The development is proposed as private streets that will be built as 26-foot wide mutual access and fire lane easement. Also, the HOA will be created with the filing of the final plat that will maintain any common elements. What y'all have in front of you is a revised, if you look at the top, a revised staff report. We had a long weekend, and they did, if you remember on your first staff report, there were probably about 18 comments, and you saw a lot of their responses back in red. Well, that's whittled down to 11 now. So we have, and then I'll show you here in just a minute, where they've done a lot of work over the long weekend. And so you've got the revised staff report. So I think there's 10 or 11 comments that will be addressed or be put on the preliminary plan. I've got a couple slides here. This is just going back to the approved concept plan back in December, Phase 1 and Phase 2. They have named it Bobcat Village. This is just zoomed in on this particular, on Phase 1, which was formerly 1H. And then you can see here, this is the most updated preliminary plat for 1H in this Phase 1. One thing that does stand out, you can see where the gas wellhead is marked there in the center. You probably can't really see it very well, but right there. So that's where they're going to have the open space there and just leave that open. Of course, no homes built on that. The town attorney is assisting staff in addressing the existing access and the pipeline easements as well. Town engineer and fire marshal have reviewed and have no additional comments at this point, and staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat for Bobcat Village Phase 1, subject to the conditions and comments in the revised staff report that's presented this evening.
Matt, are there any staff recommendations that you'd like to talk about specifically with us? They all look to me like they're mostly notations and,
Yes.
you know, commentary and things of that nature. So I don't see any necessarily red flags on those. One question of, so are there any of those you want to call out?
Not any specific, no, sir.
Okay. I did notice on now, so the copy you've got there does have the wellhead marked. Is that just slightly newer than what we've got in front of us?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are there any other differences between these two that we should discuss?
Well, not really.
No.
I mean, other than just, I mean, there's, that original list was 18 or 19 comments, and now we're down to 11, so.
So this reflects 18 and that reflects 11, basically?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Cox?
I recall at the last meeting. Go ahead.
No, go Mike.
After you.
I have questions on the gas well. I did a little looking around, and I'm wondering, when was the latest report on this plugged well given to the Railroad Commission?
I'd have to get back to you on that, unless Joshua.
No, all I know is that when they started drilling on that parcel, they couldn't find any gas, and they basically stopped and plugged it. That's why you only have one wellhead compared to the other one where you have up to, I think, 5. So they didn't find any gas there. That's why on 1 HP, the other parcel, there's not even any wellhead. They just stopped.
All right, well,
I would have to go back to the report from the Texas Railroad Commission to give you an actual date when it was all done.
right, I'd like to know what documentation is required, because I know on a capped functioning well, there are at least 2 reports that need to be filed, and I didn't see any of those filed. Of course, I'm not an expert in looking this stuff up, but, so I didn't see that. And they have a GIS system, Geographical Information System, and that's for mapping the piping and the well itself. I didn't see any of that on that system either. So I'm wondering if the Railroad Commission even knows about this well.
Or maybe there was no piping to map if it was never active, maybe. My question about that would be, though, is do those documents, when they're filed, or the check that occurs there, does that occur before permits are let? Or does that occur at this stage of the process?
Well, so going back to Paul's question, on all of the other gas well sites, so we had hundreds, probably thousands of pages of paperwork on all, from the Railroad Commission on all the other ones. This one, and I think because of what Joshua was saying, they didn't find any gas. There's not, that I know of, I don't know of any documentation, but I'll be happy to look for it, send it to you.
Well, you don't have to send it to me. The town, the Trophy Club needs to have it. And it verifies that that well's been capped. Whether they found gas or not, it needs to be capped.
I believe it was checked at zoning, but it would also be checked at permitting too.
Yeah,
And you can't build over it.
right.
Well, that's true. But it should also be capped. And we have no documentation that says it's tapped,
So I think,
been capped.
and I'm going off memory here. And I don't know that the entire set of documentation was shared with the commissioners, but at one point, I know we did receive from the town prior to the previous meeting where we discussed this, that there was some information about the gas well site, so maybe it's just kind of.
I gave y'all an example of one.
Correct.
Just because it was hundreds of pages.
So perhaps maybe just, it's worth it to confirm that we have that documentation for each of the gas well sites, which it sounds like we're gonna go benefit of the doubt here, or at least I am, probably exist, but maybe it's kind of a due diligence check that I think the commissioner's bringing up here.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, no, it definitely needs to be, addressed in one way or another.
I think you're just talking to.
But I think the critical leg in that process would be prior to permitting. I don't think we have a mechanism via the plat to require that, but the permit would most certainly require it.
Chairman, I think it would be a great idea to add that as one of the conditions, that the documentation be submitted prior to a final plat application and any construction plan submittal.
Great idea, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for Matt?
I had a question related to easements, and this was something that also came up during the last meeting and previous discussions on this. So there was a drainage easement between, I think, where the Roanoke and the Trophy Club, I'll call it kind of property line and parcels kind of end and meet. And I just remember that being a topic of conversation, but that there was, at the time, there wasn't a lot of information known about who owns the easement. Now, here I'm seeing that there's a document that's being assigned to the drainage easement, so, and it's dated 2012, and so there's some records tied to that document. Is this Trophy Club or Roanoke?
Didn't you and I talk about, are you talking about the one along?
Yeah, where I think you have a, if I remember correctly, location, it's kind of elevated where the separation of the wall is, and right, and weren't there some, it seemed like there were some outlets for drainage?
1H, was that on 1HB?
The southern tip of it is on the one we're looking at now.
So I think it's where you would make that turn to go,
West.
thank you,
Right. No, north.
northerly, westerly.
Yeah.
Either north or west.
Yeah, when you make that left turn.
That's right.
So, but Mike is correct in that a portion of it is referred to here on the plat we're considering right now, because that easement runs the whole length. But yeah, it is noted, and I think has been.
Yeah, Philip, our engineer, has looked at that, but not in depth at this point.
Okay.
Did not have any concerns at this point.
Okay. And please correct me, somebody, if I'm wrong, commissioners or staff or anybody that's here. I thought I remember or recall that there was discussion that there's a level of drainage that during heavy rainfall can be seen or is experienced coming out of this area. So I'm just thinking of the future residents, right? They're gonna be in this area. How is the development gonna accommodate for that if needed? So just
Yeah.
wanna make sure that we're taking those things into consideration as much
We
as
are.
needed.
Yeah, we've got a lot of photos from
Okay,
that.
that was my only question.
Any other questions, commissioners, on this particular plat, 1H?
Yeah, I've got one question, which, again, excuse my ignorance, I don't remember all facets of the previous meeting, but the homes that are being built on both of these are townhomes, or are they single-family homes?
Townhomes.
Are they three-story townhomes? Like a
I
traditional
believe there were two.
two-story?
two-story.
Okay.
Okay, I only have, all my notes were covered by y'all's questions except for our one change to this southern section that we're considering right now. When we initially considered the PD, that middle row of homes there had 7 lots, and now we are at 6, but there's a new lot on the lower left-hand corner, so we still have the same number of lots. Now, depending on what's in the PD, sometimes it's very specific and sometimes it's less so. So I just wanted to confirm with you guys that even though there's a swap out here, that it still conforms to the zoning in the PD as approved.
It's still the same number of lots.
And, yeah, so I know this was included in the PD, but it wasn't included as a hard and fast requirement. It was a
Exhibit.
concept plan, I guess it says it right there. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're clear on that one. Another thing that I've seen on some plats, but not all, is that the call out for HOA common areas typically will include streets, roads, et cetera, in addition to, I know it's got a catch-all phrase in there already, right? Like it already says, any commonly held property including but not limited to, and then it goes on to say open space, landscaping, et cetera. I know that in some previous neighborhoods that have had private streets, it goes ahead and says they're private streets, et cetera. So unless someone has an objection to that, we may want to add that as a condition in our motion. It seems like it'd be good for completeness sake or consistency with other plats that have similar characteristics.
Okay.
And
Also, it says the city doesn't have to maintain them.
and that too, yeah. And that's all my notes. Any other questions or commentary, guys? Yes, sir, Paul?
Just one, on that lot 24X between the middle and the east row of townhouses? Is that open area or whatever that is?
Mm-hmm.
What's the plan for that?
It's just open
Is it
space,
a
right?
road, is it a walkway? I don't know. It's, yeah, that dark green thing, is that what it's gonna look like?
It'll be open space, landscaping. It appears that there's a trail that's involved. The applicant's here, if you want to ask them specifics on landscaping or the number of trees.
Oh, yeah, no, I just wondered, the way this is put together, you know, you've got two road Fs and stuff like that, and I just wondered what that was coming down the middle.
And a plat generally identifies the lots, the configuration, the overall property boundary, and then the landscape plans that are part of the construction drawings. That's where they identify, you know, any retaining walls, trees, shrubs, sidewalks,
Well, yeah,
pedestrian ways.
okay, just wanted to know if that was gonna be developed in some way. I don't need details.
Okay.
I was able to go back and I actually have the cementing report for the wellhead. It was actually drilled in 2004 and 6 months later in January 2005, it was capped and we have all the documentation. I'll make sure I share that with Matt. I'll send him the Dropbox link with all the wellheads and we have all the documentation.
All right,
Thanks, Joshua. Appreciate that. So I think just to follow up on what Paul was bringing up about that lot, and now it includes that middle space in between the other lots where homes will be built. In order for that particular space to have anything done to it, it would probably need to come under, I mean, if it was going to be developed, to use your phrasing, it would need to come under different ownership instead of common ownership and be replatted away from the existing that open space common area in the concept plan. So that probably, you know, creates a barrier to changing the use away from open space at any point in the future. It would still be commonly owned. Does that make sense?
No.
So it's all one lot. It's all one lot now on this plat.
This 24X is a T.
Yeah, it's a T. On the concept plan that Matt was showing us one slide ago, it wasn't a T, it was just a straight line. Right. So now it'll be a T, but that's all one lot. So if that middle part there that was gonna lie between two sets of three homes was to ever be developed privately, it would have to be replatted to come under a different ownership because it would need to be separated from that common lot in the middle.
Is that hard to do?
No, but it would come before, it would come
Okay.
before the town and things would have to
Well,
happen, yeah.
There would be two plats, there would be the stem of the T, if you will, and then
Right.
the cross top.
Right, which is how it would look like there, for example, on the slide there, yeah.
Right. And so that, are you saying that that's something we should do?
No, I'm just saying that if, in the eventuality that you were asking what might happen to that,
Yeah.
to that piece, that's how the process would work in the future if something was to change.
And Rylan, the PD wouldn't allow it.
Because you'd be at your max number of lots anyway.
Correct.
Yes, you'd need a PD change to really do anything material there.
Right.
The applicant have a comment, you can come to the microphone so we can get you on the recording.
But if, for example, we want to build a dog park or something that services that community, or even like just say a pool, it's just an example.
Yeah.
Would that be okay, or you would have to go through a replat?
No, I don't believe you would. As long as it remained commonly
Common,
owned, it would be
okay.
private property owned by the HOA at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Right, yeah.
So what triggers the replat?
A change in property lines, regardless of ownership, among other things.
Okay. And we don't see that happening here.
No, I mean, to Matt's point, if it were to happen in the future, it would facilitate, most likely, all common scenarios would result in requiring an amendment to the PD, which would, again, go through the process of us and council, staff review, all the above. So,
Okay, thanks, I understand now.
let's see. Yeah, I don't have any other notes on this one. Anyone else have any other comments, questions? All right, well, excuse me, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the preliminary plat in case PP-22-001 for Bobcat Village Phase 1 with conditions for accepting the staff recommendations in the staff report, and then 2 additional conditions introduced by the commission, one being the addition of specifically mentioning streets or roads to be privately maintained by the HOA in the existing note 4 on the plat, and also that documentation regarding the capped well is included as well. And if I can get a second, we'll go forward.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Rowe, second by Commissioner Biggs. Any discussion on the motion on the floor as made? We have our staff recommendations plus the 2 that we just discussed on the table. Any thoughts? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none. Passes unanimously. We will move on to item 2, case PP-22-002, Bobcat Village Phase 2 preliminary plat, formerly 1HB. Consider and possibly act on a recommendation to the town council on a preliminary plat for Bobcat Village Phase 2, formerly 1HB, containing roughly 2.106 acres of land located east of Bobcat Boulevard, east of Halifax Street, and north of Byron Nelson High School. And Matt, once again, floor is yours.
Without being too repetitive. This plat has 14 lots and 2 open space private streets. And same as the other one, the lots meet or exceed the minimum standards in the adopted PD regulations. Development is proposed as private streets that will be built as 26-foot wide mutual access lane, fire lane easement, and the HOA will be created with the filing of the final plat. Again, this is the approved concept plan from back in December. This particular one is Phase 2, which was formerly known as 1HB. And there is the preliminary plat. And y'all do have a full-size sheet of both of these, but. Same as the first one, the staff report was revised all the comments are exactly the same as the first one on phase one. Town attorney is assisting staff in addressing the existing access and pipeline easements. We have the same pipeline easement issues on this one as we did on the other one. The town engineer and fire marshal have reviewed and have no additional comments at this point. Going off of what Mike said, that yes, they are absolutely looking at that drainage because there is a lot of water coming from there, the Roanoke residents. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat, Bobcat Village Phase 2, subject to the conditions and comments in the revised staff report presented this evening. If you have any questions? Yeah, we would add the same two comments.
Yes, although I wanted to ask, did we have a specific former well site on this one?
No, sir.
No, so we only need the one comment then, since the second one was pertaining to the capped well.
Correct.
Aside from that,
You want to reference private streets, right?
yes, yeah, for sure. Aside from that, I had wanted to mention the easements. You guys included that in the staff comments, is making sure that they're abandoned prior to final plat. Any other questions or thoughts on this one, commissioners?
I had one related to, I'm not sure if there's a way to visually show this on the plat or if it's something that could potentially be included in the general notes, but when the citizen presentations occurred, the first time we heard this, there was a lot of concern about traffic calming because of, I think, crosswalks or access through this community to the neighbors in Roanoke, and also just obviously students going from the nearby high school or schools through this community. So has that been addressed, or is there anything that we would see on a plat that might align with traffic calming measures that they've implemented or proposing to implement?
We still don't have anything. The staff recommendation number 8 says that they need to provide the traffic calming design and plan for review and consideration by staff prior to a final plat application.
Okay.
So that'll probably show up with the engineering design plans as well, but that's why we included it in here. We didn't want them to turn in a final plat and then us say, surprise, you need to turn it in. But you're right, it was in the PD regulations, so that's why it's following through here.
And what, is there kind of an established, so I think of, would this fall under essentially the town standards for how streets would be constructed, or is there a separate policy or ordinance that would be referenced for that? And I guess what I'm getting at is what standard will they be held to, or what are we going to, I guess, kind of jointly agree to on, yes, that achieves traffic calming, right?
There were images in the PD presentation back in December with the crosswalk, the flashing lights. So I'm not an engineer. I don't know your technical design standards by heart, but we'll certainly work with your consulting engineer to make sure what was illustrated follows through in the engineering plans.
And and I'm glad you touched on that, because oftentimes I think we'll see examples or representations, but they're purely just an example or representation that's not necessarily what's being.
The old rendering trick.
Right, so that's not
Yeah.
what we're going to see practically.
So it'd be a combination of staff's approval, cross-referencing the plans with the spirit of the PD and the illustrations and the examples and the goals of that, along with any building codes or standards that exist for that type of thing underlying what, just the town does, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, nothing further, appreciate it.
Okay.
If you recall, in December, of course, that was a major concern for those residents. It really appeased them when we showed on I believe it was on the concept plan. We took photos of the crosswalks that the town has just across the street, which they use on a regular basis. Joshua added those photos to that concept plan and said, we're going to use the same exact, and so, that same style. So felt like that really appeased the neighbors on that, is using, the kids would, the drivers, everyone would be accustomed to that same style crosswalk.
Okay, any other questions or thoughts, gentlemen, for Matt or for the applicant or anyone else?
Just one question to do with the inbound and outbound traffic from these two plats. Have we done or conducted, and again, forgive me if I've forgotten information that was passed back at the previous meeting, but have we made any assessment or effort to assess the impact of 37 homes and the likely increase in traffic?
No, sir.
Given how busy it is in that area, don't you think it would be a good idea to do that, especially around school times, peak times, people coming back and forth to work and things like that? Just seems like it might be. I recall it being a concern in the meeting that came up, was the increase in traffic, and the example was given of just how morning and peak time traffic can be in that particular area.
Yeah.
I think from a town point of view, that's, before the town approves anything, we should at least take a look at that, because it's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, and one of the main concerns was, gosh, I think it might have even been, was it Luann, where you live? On when they pick the kids up, is that the moms, if they figure out this is a easy, very close way of, therefore that's why they were gonna put the fencing and the gate to be able to keep just outside coming in. Because if you do look at the overall, I think it's this one here, they're very, very close to Byron Nelson. And if pickup actually came in through there, that would bottleneck that area. Plus also fire hazard, you name it, so.
No, it's definitely a valid concern, and it was, talked about a lot during the portion of the process where we were reviewing the zoning. And honestly, the density is one of the reasons why I didn't support the particular PD, and I did not vote in favor. But the density has been approved already in the zoning, so at this phase of the process, we really don't have any levers left to pull on that aspect of it. Where at this point, we are mainly making sure that the plat, dots all the i's and crosses t's and conforms to the PD zoning that was already approved back in whenever that was, December, January timeframe. Yeah.
There was a mention of some kind of a study or some research to be done at that time. I do recall that, but clearly we haven't done anything, so we don't know.
Okay. Any other questions, any other thoughts from the commission? All right, I'll make a motion that we approve case PP-22-002, Bobcat Village Phase 2 Preliminary Plat, formerly 1HB, with the staff recommendations, conditions 1 through 11, and an additional condition introduced by the P&Z Commission requesting that Note 4 regarding HOA responsibilities be amended to include private streets. And if I get a second, we can discuss further. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Rowe, second by Commissioner Barbarin. Any discussion for the motion on the floor? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? There are none. Passes unanimously. And we'll move on to item number 3, take appropriate action regarding the May 5th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners, if you have any comments or amendments you'd like to make to the minutes, now is the time. This was the meeting where we heard the meritorious exception for the Social Oak sign. It was our most recent meeting. And then that was really it.
I do have one comment. I didn't notice in the meeting minutes that we discussed revising the sign ordinance to minimize the need for review and to be in accordance with current thinking.
So if you'd like to, Commissioner Jablonski, if you want to make a motion to approve the minutes, you can add that as a condition of the motion to say that you'd like to have that added
Okay,
to the minutes if you want.
does anyone else have any comments?
Yeah. Yeah, any other thoughts?
I was just remembering the percentage of
Right.
calculation.
area.
There's
Yep.
a whole science to this that
Yeah, it's an entire, you probably get a master's degree in it, for all we know.
master's degree.
Any other thoughts, commissioners? Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with Mr. Jablonski's recommended addition that we mentioned, the discussion of overall sign ordinance process and review. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Rose, second by Commissioner Branham. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. And we'll move on to item number 4 from staff. Receive updates on previous cases heard by the commission and active development in town. All right.
The only thing we've got also coming up is over there by the Churchill Downs, if y'all recall, gosh, this is back September, October, November, the Scoreberg Group with those 2 properties. Well, those properties are individually now being sold separately. And so the smaller section, I cannot remember the acreage on that, but they have given us a preliminary plat to start reviewing and looking at, and it's 6 homes.